It's adjusting people's expectations of the construction norm, that it's not such a broken system to where we have the technology to help us, that there should be higher expectations now.
On this episode of the RCN podcast, the Director of Virtual Construction at MJ Harris Construction Services, Paul Hedgepath.
Really, with any type of technology that we use, we want to have a problem that we're solving.
That's one of the things I love discussing, and honestly, you could probably do that about all of the different technologies.
Dedicated R&D is important, even an R&D budget.
Someone that expresses that interest, just that drive.
And I think that scanner is probably $200,000, right? It's huge.
Doing it the way you're doing it now is cheaper.
Oh, absolutely. If you're continually learning and getting better, it's going to equal advancement and higher pay. Treat your profession like school and always continuously learn. If you act like you don't know anything, then you'll learn a tremendous amount.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Reality Capture Network podcast. I'm excited to be talking with Paul today. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, glad to be here.
As we get started, tell us a little bit about what your kind of career path had looked like to get into your current role.
Really, I guess it started in high school, and I had a little bit of interest in the vocations, and my mom was a teacher at the school I went to, and so she's like, hey, you got to figure out what you want to do. And she was a marketing teacher, but then she went up to the vocational school and taught there in terms of co-ops and things like that, people that were working and going to school. And she was aware of the drafting class they had there and said, hey, drafting might be something you're interested in. You like to draw and all that stuff. And so, yeah, it's a good idea. And so I ended up going up there 3 periods a day from 10th grade to 12th and started with, this is probably in 1994. Started with manual drafting. And at the time they had AutoCAD, I guess DOS-based AutoCAD on their computers, and they were showing us that as well. And then it went to AutoCAD Lite. And then while I was a senior in high school, I started working for my professor, or I guess my teacher at the high school, recommended me to a architecture firm in town. So I would go after school and work for that architecture firm and do drafting, and then I would do it on the weekends some with them also, just for extra cash. And then I continued to do that after high school and went on and worked full-time for them, and then went to a technical school at night and got a associate's in architectural drafting design. And that kind of led on to decide, hey, I want to be an architect, and then eventually transferred to Auburn into their summer option architecture program, and then quickly realized that I'm more of a kind of a drafter kind of guy, not necessarily a designer, and found out about the building science program at Auburn while I was there. I didn't know it was a thing that existed prior to that, and I changed to building science, and I was able to kind of still take the architectural 3D electives with the architecture students, but then go through all the building science courses. And while I was at Auburn, I worked for a design build company also full time. And then I was able to kind of do that and do some CAD work and BIM work with them, and still and project management work, and still go do my course load and that kind of stuff. And then once I graduated from Auburn, I went to Holder Construction, and they were just now starting the BIM department. It was me and 2 other guys trying to figure out what this BIM thing was and how we were going to use it in around 2005. And then that led on to being a regional director at J.E. Dunn Construction, and then I've been the national director at MJ Harris for probably about 13 years. So about 20 years I've been in the construction technology environment, dealing with working for construction companies, and it's definitely changed a lot. In the very beginning, we were all just dealing with just BIM, and now I had no idea that I'd be dealing with laser scanning and drones and 360 photos and all the different things that we do every day. But it's exciting because now we've got AI coming up, right? So it's exciting that my position always is changing, and that I'm not just going to be a set something for the rest of my life, and it's cool because I like being innovative and trying things out, and so it's a good job to have.
That's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. Hearing some of that, was as you kind of were in these different roles, was the company creating a lot of opportunity for you to dive into technologies and they were pushing the innovation, or did you have outside inspiration that you kind of found some of the tech and brought it in, or how did that look?
I guess in the beginning, we knew this was something that was starting to gain traction in the industry, well, specifically with BIM. And so it's something that I wanted to do. I was in pre-construction to start with, and I think the day they told me, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and do the BIM thing," I moved my desk that same day and went over there to the design department. So I was definitely pushing it on my end because I was thinking, how could I marry architecture and technology and construction all in one thing? But then I was lucky enough to be with an innovative company that they wanted to do that, and they wanted to facilitate that. They're specifically Holder, they're the world's largest data center builder. So if you're looking at about 80% of the cost of a data center is in with the mechanical systems. So we got to really make sure all that stuff's coordinated right. And they were building these things, these $200 million data centers in 10 months. And so you really don't have time to rework things. And so it made sense. And then, of course, found benefit with actually my first BIM job was the Aquarium Hilton Garden Inn across the street from the aquarium. And so it wasn't even a data center, but they found value in other types of projects too. But the data center market, as we continue to coordinate those, there's a lot of value and save time in the coordination doing those.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like a great way to get in. The first and the early adopters of the technologies have been those really expensive, complex projects because, back then it was expensive to integrate the new technologies. There weren't tons of people who knew how to do it. And I think we even still see that today with growth of new technologies where, BIM has had quite a journey, and it's a very normal, common, required thing on many projects across many industries. And now we have this growth within the laser scanning, point clouds, 360 photos, videos. Like there's all these other technologies that are starting to get integrated, and we're kind of at that early growth stage there where it used to only be big, expensive jobs, and there was very limited on who was doing it and how they did it. But the last several years, we've seen such a growth and change in what technologies are available, how, the entry point and cost to get into them and the speed of processing for computers. And it's really making that whole ecosystem of technology more and more desired by so many different types of companies. But I think that also creates a lot of challenge with growing it and the knowledge of how to integrate them all and the resources available. Who out there can you hire that are experts in this already? Similar to what you went through with school. I don't think there's very many schools yet that are turning out people who understand laser scanners and drones and process. I think there's a good number of them that are starting to touch on them in construction management programs or things, but just enough that maybe the awareness is there, not that they can actually come out and start performing it all. At least that's what I think I see.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is changing a little bit. I lecture at Auburn University a lot, and they have a fantastic construction management program there. And so one of the first times that the students really see laser scanners when I'm coming in there and lecturing, they start out with Revit, and then we schedule it to where I go to every CIT 1 class every semester, and I'll bring my laser scanner, kind of explain what reality capture is, and then all the case studies of how we use it at MJ Harris. But I know they've recently, and I'm actually going to lecture to their reality capture class on October 2nd. So this is a new elective they have. This is just specifically reality capture. So they dive deep into everything. And, they have I think they have like 5 laser scanners in the department. So they have several different types, and they're doing different types of jobs and using the software. So it's pretty exciting. I'm not sure how long. I think maybe a year or so that they've had this reality capture program. But it is something to where, Auburn's one of the oldest and best in the country in terms of construction management schools, and they're recognizing that this is something that is important to include in their education. So yeah, it is exciting.
Yeah, I would say that's rare. I don't know of very many universities that have a reality capture or laser scanning specific focus. I've definitely heard of throughout a certain course, someone brings it in and just shows the awareness, but doesn't get deep into it, doesn't have all the different devices, and it has to go that way though, because the industry is starting to demand all these technologies, and I keep telling people, I'm like, with what I see and all the people I talk to and the volume of people out there that are experts in reality capture or scanning, the current workforce cannot do the volume of work that will be desired by clients 5 years from now, unless universities start integrating it more and put a big focus there, or individual companies or something start creating ways to train. And right now, everybody that's doing it has been just on the job learning, but the demand is growing quite a bit.
Yeah.
What other new technologies? So, you talk a little bit about your BIM history, and you mentioned that now you're doing scanning and drones and all these others. Could we talk a little bit about some of those technologies that you guys have integrated that are kind of a focus for you? And then we could maybe talk about a couple of the use cases for some of the listeners that maybe are questioning, like, how do these tools help construction projects?
Yeah. Well, I think one of them, 360 photos, we adopted that in 2017. And it really, with any type of technology that we use, we want to have a problem that we're solving. We're not necessarily just pushing technology for the sake of technology. And so we had a real problem. Our guys in the field, they were taking photos, but it wasn't consistent. And a lot of times those locations weren't correct where we were taking the photos. And you may end up with a picture of a door frame, but you have an 8-story building. You have no idea where it is.
Which door frame?
Which one? Which of the 400, right? So there's ways, and of course you can take photos and set pins and still have 2D photos, but really there's a time suck with that as well. Even if you do accurately position all the photos or label them correctly. And so adopting 360 photos, and specifically Struction Site, is what we use, and they've been acquired by Drone Deploy, and so that's a great integration as well. Totally. But we started with them in the beginning, and it's been great. I think the biggest hurdle to get over was to get people used to taking them, and we created our own internal training program just for Struction Site. We probably have 360 packs that we send out to every job site that has everything ready to go for them. And they just open it up and they can go. We probably got like 30 of those, and we send them all around the country to each of our jobs. So the one thing about us is we're not necessarily regional. We're nationwide. We're a mid-sized GC, roughly 250, 300 million a year, but our jobs are all over the country, California, Alaska, everywhere, because we follow our clients where we go. And so keeping that consistency in those photos is important, because we can't necessarily be at the job site all the time.
Yeah.
Checking on things.
That's one of the huge benefits, is just that the access to view sites and view areas and measure and collaborate on data without having to travel to the site. Exactly. Would you share a little bit of what's a normal process look like for you? Are you guys doing daily, weekly, monthly? What's a typical consistency look like for you on implementing those?
So we try to get at least every couple of weeks the progress photos for the areas, depending on the size of the job. So if it's a small job, then they can probably do it every week. But if it's a large job and you only have maybe one field engineer, that's our title that we use for the guys that do the drones and the 360 photos on our job sites, couple weeks. But the video walks we'll try to do every few days, every 2-3 days, because our field engineers are walking the job anyway. Might as well just turn the camera on and go with it. So once that was introduced 5 or 6 years ago, the video walk's been awesome for us in terms of saving time and capturing a whole lot of data. But we still use the progress photos because we want to have a static location to where and with Struction Site and most of the softwares out there, you can do the comparison between this date and that date. So we know it's in that specific room and that specific location. You can do comparisons with Video Walk, but they may walk a different path every time. So we try to do a little bit of both. We have a policy, but we also have a technology kickoff meeting with every project, and we see how often are they really going to be able to do it. What's the project staff like? How big is it? And how long is it? Maybe we're going to have to split this up into levels, certain days, and that kind of stuff. So the more direction we can give, and the more we're in tune with the expectations that the superintendent has for that field engineer in terms of all their other tasks they got to do, and how that'll work, how the technology will work into those expectations as well, then it becomes more of a win. We don't want it to be something to where, hey, I got to do my job for the superintendent, then I got to go over here and make Paul happy, right? We don't want it to be like that. It needs to be cohesive and one thing. We're doing this all to help the job, right?
Yeah, really. That company culture, the buy-in from the team, I think is a big piece in any technology adoption.
Yeah.
The tool can be awesome. The value that comes out can be awesome. Then it's like, well, how easy is it to do? How tedious is it? What's the learning curve? And I think that buy-in from that whole team is a great point. It's critical in order to integrate. I would assume that because 360 photo is kind of that entry level, like it's not super difficult. Was scaling that as large as you guys are, like, was it difficult? Was it, or, how easy was that to get the buy-in, both from the company as a whole to, hey, we have to invest in this. We need the whole platform. We need to do it on jobs. Did you have to follow like a pilot test and, proving out ROI type of thing, or what was the adoption like?
Yeah, so I had to do it myself on some of our jobs we had local in town, and to really show that ROI, I tested out, because really getting the guys to test something that I'm interested in when they have so many other things to do, it's tough sometimes. They're busy out there. So going out on the job site, taking the photos and capturing, and then comparing that to our standard way of doing it and saying, hey, this is why this is better. So yeah, it took a little while, and especially in 2017, it was kind of new in the industry, right? So we didn't have a whole lot of other people saying, hey, well, they're doing it and it's successful. So
can I ask, I don't know if you'll have this information or thought in mind. I know it's been a while and you guys have integrated it, but would you say that the cost of doing it the way you're doing it now is cheaper than you were doing before? Sometimes we compare, right? Like, hey, I want to integrate this technology, and sometimes
I would say the cost of not doing it, right? So if you, if something that we need to catch, and we've caught stuff with it, and it's been a lot of money that saved us. So I think that's the biggest win. And then, so the cost of having a field engineer go out there and take photos, it does take up more of his time. And then the problem was
more than how they used to do the photos.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I would say it's 10 times faster.
Yeah. So the actual capture process of doing the 360 is actually cheaper or faster than the old way of doing it.
Oh, absolutely. The old way of doing it, you're taking. Maybe you're using a Procore or something and taking pictures on there, but a lot of times, even before that, they were just taking them manually. I mean, the old school camera, right, with the SD card and putting them in there and uploading, and then going in there. That's how a lot of our jobs were doing it, and then going in there and renaming each photo. So that took a long time.
That's one of the things I love discussing, and honestly, you could probably do that about all of the different technologies. Is sometimes people's initial response is, we didn't budget to do 360 photos. We don't have a budget to do laser scanning. But if you always ask that question of like, okay, what are you doing if you don't do it? Yeah. Not only does that new technology provide more value, you can do it more often, but usually there's something else that has to be done if you don't, that sometimes is actually more expensive or more laborious or more. And so it's fun looking at those comparisons and always posing that question back to a team who's like, hey, we don't know if we want to adopt it. It's like, what else are you doing?
Yeah. It's almost like all that extra work sometimes gets lost in the mix, and they say, well, that's just part of construction. So if you don't do BIM on a job, we always coordinated before without it, but you had a superintendent out there arguing with everybody every day, and then you had people taking stuff down and up and change orders and cost, and a lot of moving things that people thought were the norm that should not be the norm now, right? With the BIM. Same thing with laser scanning. Oh, we didn't know that was there, and now we have to have this big change order because we couldn't capture this, or we didn't measure it right, or it took us 3 weeks to measure something. That shouldn't be the norm. So it's adjusting people's expectations of the construction norm, that it's not such a broken system to where we have the technology to help us. There should be higher expectations now, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, That was a really great explanation on the 360 photo side. Could you do a similar just kind of overview of some of the other technologies and maybe the status of like how much you guys use them from, the scanners or the drone side or anything else?
Yeah, with drones, that's an adoption that it kind of started with 360 photos. It was me doing it on jobs locally, and then we had a couple people that were interested, and then it grew. We probably have 14 licensed pilots now, and they each have their own drone, and we do use post-processing software like Drone Deploy and things like that. One thing that I think sometimes doesn't get enough credit is just playing videos also, because our owners love the videos and love being able to see the updates. And so I created a company Vimeo page of just the videos that has all our current drone flights that you can go to, and then we send this link out to our owners and they can see an update of it and see what's going on.
That's awesome.
We got field engineers picking out music. We got to tell them which music's good and which one's not. So they're editing videos and picking out music and making drone flights, and cool. It's surprising that we're able to get those guys to do it. But it's something that's it's technology that's helping the job, and we're not having to spend $400 or $500 a drone flight because we got our guys on site doing it and then making a good product. And then, of course, all the other post-processing software where we're able to use photogrammetry models and see more angles of the building than you could from just a static video or static photos, and trying to use it more with planning and that kind of stuff. So there's other things that we're still trying to expand more. I'm sure there's other GCs that are doing everything with drones, but for us to have so many pilots for the size we are, I think it's pretty good success so far, and then we're continuing to grow that. So
that's awesome. Yeah. What about the laser scanning side?
So for laser scanning, we started really, it was me, buying a used laser scanner and really saying, hey, this is something we need, and let's try it out. And as soon as we got it, we started getting success with it. And then we migrated from that scanner. It was probably 15 years old to we got the Trimble one, the X7, and then we were able to use that and do the on-site registration, use it for inspections, combining the model with the scan while we're scanning to check out variants. But I would say as soon as I bought the scanner, it probably half of it was paid for within 4 months, just on jobs. And then we did some scanning as a service for some other for some architects and things like that. So the recovery was pretty quick on it, and the things that it's found has been great for us. We do a lot of existing hospitals, so there's a whole bunch of stuff up there, and the design team usually never has access to the above ceiling because there's patients in there, and so we don't have access till it's time to go. And then so I'll fly out there wherever it is and scan all that stuff and get it back.
Nighttime above ceiling hospitals. That's the best right there.
Popping tiles or moving patients, things like that. But I'll try to wait till the ceiling's down if I can, and then get in there and capture it all. Then we'll get it modeled, and we'll put that in our coordination. We have a hospital in Yuma, Arizona right now, so where if we hadn't a laser scanned that, I mean, it would have been a mess just because of all the existing stuff that has to stay. And it's in the center of the hospital, so everything converges there. And not only that, but then we have other GCs working right next to us that are installing or tying on to pipes that we're working on too. So we have McCarthy working on stuff over here, and what they do impacts us, and so we're sharing our laser scan. And I flew to Indianapolis a couple months ago and scanned all the existing structure that the engineer wasn't able to get access to, and we found tons of issues ahead of time, and we're able to coordinate a lot of stuff that we would not have been able to coordinate, and we'd still be working out problems now. So for existing,
it's really incredible.
Yeah, existing verification is really what we use it the most for. Floor flatness, we've run some flatness tests. We've had some spec requirements for flatness tests that we're able to do ourselves because we have the scanner. And then new install as well as far as pouring concrete. Try to do some of that. It's a little tougher. You kind of need to have a guy on site scanning that's there for the concrete pour every time. But trying to figure that out as well in the future.
So concrete pours, obviously scanning existing buildings before design type work, before construction. Do you guys do QC type work during construction, kind of progress scans or comparative design? I know it feels like that's kind of some of the next phase. Historically, lots of people are starting to go scan the building before, so we have accurate as-built. Mm-hmm. And it seems like more companies are now starting to move into, okay, let's also scan during and let's scan after and have a final actual as-built, update models. Have you guys gotten into doing those portions?
So for the local jobs, I've been doing that some with the overhead mechanical systems. So scanning it and then putting the model on the tablet in there while I scan, and then do the comparative check. So it'll check and tell you if things are green if it's good, red if it's out, while you're doing it in the field. So that's been a good in the field kind of check. Then also scanning stuff and then doing the overlay in the model after the fact to check the things as well. Because what's the point of doing BIM if no one's installing per the BIM, right?
Yeah.
So we spend 4 to 6 months on these jobs, coordinating a long time sometimes, and really checking that is important. But again, it comes down to the staffing on the job. So local ones able to do that some, but really since we're a national contractor, getting more field engineers with the laser scanning ability and getting another scanner. Right. And shipping that thing around. I could send them the old one, but I don't know if I want to put them through that.
Yeah.
But so having the on-site registration is huge, I think, for people learning in it. So we've taught, and Building Point's done a great job with training too. And we've taught people how to use the scanner, this particular scanner, probably in like 20 minutes. Just saying, click this button. Look at the tablet. Does it look like it's scanned? Yes. No. This is how do you align it if it doesn't auto align, that kind of thing. So really, I think the progression of on-site registration and the way the software is going is making it more easier accessible for construction professionals, just regular people that are normally checking fire dampers or doing other things for a GC, to run a laser scanner. I think it's probably easier than a robotic total station in terms of doing it and setting it up.
Running a scanner, versus a total station. Total stations you got to have set up accurately. You need to know, how high it's set up. You're putting it right over a point. You're resecting. Yeah, a lot more tedious skill set and attention to detail. I think the time that scanners become more, the smaller the job, the smaller the area, the less complex, the easier to scan, right? Like anybody can take the scanner and run through a small office space, or it does start to get a little bit more detailed or tedious when you get into several stories of a building or a very large space. And we still see some challenges there where the industry doesn't talk a lot about the need for control, and how much survey control should you integrate those into targets? How much error is built up between scans, or using SLAM registration over a long space, or those are some areas we see a little bit of a gap, and are hoping to build some awareness there and some guidelines and some standards or some certifications, or because as the needs grow, there has to be some way to identify those types of things. Just to help people avoid issues, because the technology, we are using it to try to avoid issues, but the technology can also actually create issues if there's inaccuracies or things like that we run into. What would you say are, when it comes to all these new technologies, and maybe even specific around some of this capture and the use of the data, what pops in your mind as some of your main pain points around the implementation or the growth of these, doing it more, using it for more projects or solving more problems? What do you see as some of the issues or limitations?
The cost of the hardware. I think it's coming down just like everything, right? I think the first time I experienced this scanning, they scanned baggage claim at the Atlanta International Terminal. We had someone do it. It was 2010 or so, and how that baggage claim was going to, those conveyors were going to connect to the new $1.4 billion terminal we were building. I was the on-site BIM manager for that, and I think that scanner is probably $200,000, right? And it's huge, and it was, and now they're getting more affordable. So they're getting out of the kind of the 70, 80 grand range where you're getting something pretty good for 50, 56 grand. But still, it's such a large number that it's hard to say, yeah, we're going to buy 4 or 5 for a mid-sized GC like us. they're like, hey, we got one, rather just send you on a plane and have you go do it and come back. But you really kind of need a scanner on site all the time doing progressive scanning and that type of thing. So as it gets cheaper, as it gets faster, which you're starting to see some of that with Navis and the new mobile scanner that Pharaoh's come out with, and some of the other things where the accuracy is getting better and it's faster, I think we'll see a higher adoption. I think the physically doing it is not hard. Pressing a button and walking around, or pressing a button and waiting, is not hard. It's just all the other stuff that goes that has to do with the time to do it and the cost, in my opinion.
Yeah. What about after the capture? So you get back to the office and you have all this data and all this processing and all the ways to use the data and softwares to create deliverables from the data.
Yeah.
What's some of the experience like that, looked like to date, and or, what are some issues or limitations in those sides?
Yeah, so we could do a lot with Trimble Field Link on the tablet, but we also have RealWorks I have in the office. And so Trimble owns RealWorks, so I kind of went with them, and it seems to be pretty good for what we need to do as far as processing everything. And I mean, there's some things I definitely wouldn't have been able to do if I didn't have RealWorks. So there is I think from the capture standpoint, we'll get there as the cost gets down, but then you're always going to have some kind of BIM guy or laser scan guy or something in the office somewhere that's able to take that data and solve problems, or take big point clouds and post-process that stuff. Also, as the software continues to advance, modeling capabilities to where object recognition for the point cloud and auto-creating surfaces, that's getting better with some software, to where you're not necessarily having to import things into Revit and trace over it as much. So as that gets more advanced, I think maybe AI might start integrating more of that and other things, to where maybe someday we'll be able to just scan and then all of a sudden you have a model. That would be awesome.
Yeah. The dream button.
The easy button, right? That's all you need. It's just the easy button to press.
That's awesome. Where do you see, and I know some of the things you just talked about maybe even are within this answer, but, say some of those things are worked out. Where do you see the construction site and these technologies, 10 years from now?
I think 10 years from now, you're probably going to have scanners are probably going to be half the cost they are now, or less. So I think you'll have more of them, and I think they'll be small. We got small scanners now, but they're not necessarily as accurate as the big ones, right? I think they'll be small and accurate and mobile, all of them. So when we get to that point to where I can say, hey, take this out of your little scanner box and walk around, just like you would do a video walk, right? And capture all this, and then all of a sudden it's uploaded to the cloud, and the size of the data is small too. It's not gigantic, and you don't have to wait forever for it to upload to a Send2 or something like that, or just goes to the cloud, you get it and you dump it down, and then you have the data. I think when we get to that point, we'll start seeing more of the digital twin initiatives, right, where we're doing exact as-built of everything, whether it's required or not, and creating this digital twin that makes sure it matches everything that's out there. And I think 10 years is probably about the right amount of time. And with the advancement of AI and how that's going to start to integrate with all the software too, it's going to start taking some of the legwork of that post-process out, to where we start, maybe we get automatic model, or maybe we get automatic. We do get variance checks now automatically, but you have to press a few buttons, right? Maybe it's just real-time kind of thing by then. For
you guys as a company, are you basically the R&D or the innovation research, or do you guys specifically dedicate time or resources to that, or is it kind of as you're just brought to awareness of tools, or what does the process look like for you guys in that regard?
Yeah, I'm kind of that person too.
Is it like a dedicated amount of time, an agreement that this is something you do, or is it just kind of falls into your lap?
Falls into my lap. I know a lot of folks that are like in my position, so we rely on each other. Say, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen that? We think and take each other's opinions, value those pretty highly. So that's kind of our think tank in terms of exchanging ideas. And then one of us will try it, right? And then give our opinion, and that's just kind of how it goes. I think dedicated R&D is important, even an R&D budget and that kind of stuff, but sometimes you can't necessarily get that all the time. And sometimes it has to be justifiable for the people that aren't in technology. But we do, I think for our size, and when I started here, we were 80 million. So we've grown a good bit. And for our size, I think we've done a pretty good job keeping up with the latest stuff. There's some things I wish we got that we haven't yet. But at the same time, I do think R&D is important, though.
It's at least nice that you have the flexibility that you do have, and you have gotten the adoption of tech. I think the bigger the company gets, the more important it might be of like, hey, let's actually have a innovation department or an innovation person or someone that, because I can imagine it's challenging that if there's not necessarily dedicated time or resource to that, the volume of tech that is out there, it's hard to trial everything, every piece of hardware. There's 20 different scanners, different sizes, different speeds, different, just the amount of time for companies today to do the research of what exists, what could we implement, what is the potential process. It's very laborious. Part of our hope with RCN is like trying to bring some of that information together and the lessons learned and the guidelines and case studies, just to help even the research process. I mean, if I want to go buy a new scanner today, where do I start to learn about what is even out there? You're just Googling, like hoping you find articles and posts. And I think the more that we collaborate and share, which I love, you shared part of your process is like other professionals in your type of role. You guys communicate, you throw things by each other. I think doing that even more across the whole industry, because we can learn from each other as opposed to every construction firm or every survey firm having to do that whole process by themselves. It's like, let's share the lessons learned. Let's do a case study on trying a technology and share what went well and what didn't, so that everybody else can get a little bit of insight before they decide what to trial. I think collaboration is a big key in building this industry and sharing that information, growing the adoption. I think it's really important.
Yeah, completely agree. Having that type of resource, because not everybody's going to have a big pool of people to, it took me 20 years to gather that pool of people to talk to. So not everybody's going to have that. So having those consistent resources, like you're providing, is extremely valuable. So. Yeah.
And obviously you, with your involvement in a university, you probably have a certain vision or desire to help educate the next generation or inspire people to get into this industry.
Yeah.
And I think I see that as a really important piece too. I mean, it's part of the podcast. It's part of the media push is like nowadays, what are kids in high school thinking about doing, for a job?
Yeah.
I mean, becoming a esports gamer or a YouTuber or someone on TikTok sounds like a much more lush, easy job than what most people picture construction or survey and I believe these technologies are the way to attract next level talent of like, look, this industry is important. There's real jobs here. These technologies are fun. They're attractive. They're visual, and they have major career opportunities. The fact that the resources of people that can do scanning, do drone work, do scan to BIM, those people are limited.
Yeah.
If you come in, a new student could walk in and get a couple years experience in that, and now they are very valuable in the industry because the demand is growing. People want to hire. There's not enough people to hire. So it's actually it's a great entry into this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think any kind of training they can get before they enter the industry. I mean, even a high school kid, they can learn how to reality capture and that kind of stuff. When I lecture, I always say, hey, get your Part 107 license and put it on your resume, because that's going to be something that's going to set you apart, that's going to add value to that job, because you're already a licensed pilot and they're used to studying already, right? So might as well just watch those 20 hours of videos and take that test and be good to go.
Yeah.
So
another piece I recently talked with someone about was like the LiDAR on your iPhone.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that even exists. And we were talking about this, about education. How can people get started? And it's like, I 100% promise you, if you're a student right now and you don't know what you want to do, and this sounds interesting to you, if you download a free scanning app on your phone, you play with it for a couple weeks, take some screenshots, look up some videos on YouTube, understand a little bit of this terminology, and if you reach out to someone in a construction tech field, in an industry near you, and you express interest in like, I've been researching scanning, I've been playing with this, look at this data that I got, I'm looking for an internship, there are 10 companies, that would hire you immediately.
Yeah.
You don't even have to look for a job post that's already out of someone to hire, look to hire that. Because there's not enough people that are professionals in it to go hire someone that expresses that interest and just that drive to like, I want to come in and learn, and I'm already doing the research, that'll really make you stand out.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I know Trimble's coming out with some things that, as far as the phone to scan to BIM, and there's other softwares that have come out to really kind of capitalize on the iPhone and what they're doing. And so I actually got a meeting with one of those softwares in a couple of weeks. So it's pretty cool, the stuff they have. And every superintendent has an iPhone, right?
Yes.
So then
one of the biggest pluses of it.
Yeah. So it's the construction phone that everybody has. And so it'll be exciting to get that in more hands to see what we can really do with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's actually going to be a big part in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that those are going to enhance a lot. I think that idea of it's so accessible, it's in everyone's pocket, the scanner is not full-time on site, like the ability to, I always use an example of like, hey, we scanned the whole building, but the mechanical room was locked and we couldn't get access. We already left the site. Okay, well, the superintendent could download the free app, scan that room and send it to you, and you integrate it in the building. Maybe it's not ever that you scan the whole building with an iPhone, but can it be that supportive or the maintenance or the individual things or an update? I think that's going to become the normal several years, from now.
Or, hey, they installed this over here and we're having a problem. Let me scan it and shoot it to you. And then, it looks like that pipe's not where it's supposed to be. So,
yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate all your insight. It's very cool seeing, again, how these technologies are growing in construction. It's awesome that you're pushing into the education piece and helping at a university, showcase more reality capture, more of these cool technologies, but not even just that they're cool, but how are they changing construction and what does that future look like? Because we definitely need more people entering the industry.
Absolutely.
The last piece I want to ask, even along that vein, I always love asking people, and this may be a common question, but over the 10, 15, 20 years of your growth in the industry and around these technologies and some of your lessons learned even just in your actual career path, what's some advice that you would give to those, students or those early in their career that are kind of looking to grow? What advice would you leave with them?
I would say treat the industry, and actually have a slide on my lecture about this.
I bet
that I tell every one of them. I said, don't, but treat your profession like school and always continuously learn. And if you're continually learning and getting better, it's going to equal advancement and higher pay in your industry. We're not necessarily dentists or anything that have a set position where we know we're going to get paid a certain amount. Your success in construction depends entirely on yourself once you've entered the industry. So, treat it like school, continually learn, and listen to everybody and seek advice. Because if you act like you don't know anything, then you'll learn a tremendous amount. I'm learning stuff every day still from trades and other things, and then sometimes don't let work, I guess. Don't let being busy at work prevent you from improving yourself and learning something new. So sometimes you may have to do some stuff at the house, things like that. So that's just some of the things.
Yeah. Those are great.
Yeah.
So very valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, the continuous learning, try not to put up those walls or silos and just stare at what your task is, but always be open to researching. Today, that's so easy.
Yeah.
Spending a little bit of time on your own, YouTube stuff, look things up, find some channels, find some tech, try to go to some events where you might see things you didn't know existed. That continuous learning and passion for whatever work you are doing, I think makes a massive difference. So thank you for leaving that with the audience. It's been a pleasure having you, and looking forward to more conversations ahead.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.